Today, I am thrilled to present Show Me More Money, Finding Project Funding. One of the things we realized when it came to this roundtable last time was there's a lot of acronyms. So everyone out in our audience, everyone who was signed up by, I think, 11 o'clock this morning, sent y'all an email with a couple bits. One was this acronym list. You don't do this all the time. You may have no idea what these things stand for, so now you do. Also sent you a chart that Entech put together. Actually, Tori Morgan from our office has it for all the different funding opportunities based on who the organization is, and then if it's good for lead or good for stormwater. So really, really cool chart, plus a link to the cork. And the cork is our virtual cork board that has all sorts of great information and the latest and greatest on funding, as well as water and wastewater things. So these are the acronyms that should be to help you out. And one of the things I always like to do first is introduce my panel, because without this, well, I know nothing about funding. So that's why all of you guys are here. So just to start out, I'm Christine Gonzalez, Senior Project Manager and Storage Tank Queen here at Entech Engineering. So if you got a tank issue, call me. Funding, call these people. Natalie O'Connor. Natalie, you are the project manager at Entech, and she works out of our Pottsville office. She's got 33 PennVest projects under her belt. Well, is it 33 or has it increased since November?
I think we did one more, so it's 34 now.
Okay. I'm going to update that for you. And she's got 20 years of experience in the industry. Mary Peters is a project manager at Entech, and she works out of our Mountaintop office. She's got 14 years in the industry. And Michael Angerson, he's a consultant for Entech, and also helps other organizations out with funding with a focus on RUS, and that stands for, if you use your acronym chart, Rural Utilities Service. So our panels always work really, really well because we love drawing from industry experts and our friends out there with a wide variety of viewpoints. So we've got Robert Booz. He's the Deputy Executive Director for Project Management with the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority. So he's our PennVest expert today with 23 years of experience. We have Sean McElroy. He's an area specialist from the Lebanon area office with the rural development of the USDA. So he's our RUS expert with 19 years of experience. And finally, returning to our funding panel is Scott Kramer. He's the managing director at RBC Capital Markets in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he explained last time that 50% of their work is actually securing loans and refinancing for water and wastewater clients. So huge welcome to our panel. Instead of us just chatting, talking about whatever with funding, we always like to reach out to our audience first and find out, okay, what are your concerns? What do you need help with? So I'm going to launch a poll right now to our audience and tell us about your struggles. We've got 3, 6, 7 different options there, but what are your biggest struggles in finding funding? And you can pick multiple ones. And what we'll do is we'll focus on the ones that are most of a concern for you guys and make sure we spend the most amount talking about those things. So I'm also curious to see if anything changes with our audience since the one we did back in November. I know for that one, knowing what programs you're eligible for and understanding which grants and loans are best, they were the 2 top ones that we had hit on last time. So I'll give you another 10 seconds out there in the audience to submit your concerns and struggles. And I'm going to end the polling and then I'll share the results of everybody out there. And share results. Okay, so it looks like knowing what programs for which you're eligible, that has 62%. Second highest was understanding which grants and loans are best for different projects. And the third was the board doesn't want to raise the rates. I think that's always a struggle. Okay, cool. This is so helpful. So thank you to our audience for giving us that feedback. We appreciate it. To get started, so our first concern from our audience was knowing what programs for which you're eligible. So I'm going to throw it out to the panel. Who's got what's the best way for people out there to know what they're eligible for, or to even know what's available? So who has some comments on that? Okay, yes, Robert, and you're on mute, just a reminder.
Yeah, best thing with our agency is just to reach out to us. We have project specialists in various field areas across the state, and really they're the ones you're going to be engaging with directly. And one of their tasks and job duties is really to foster you through information, application processes, answer questions. They'll come to meetings, they'll sit down with boards and really answer any questions, and do planning consultations and interact and engage with you on the various PennVest programs, funding opportunities, kind of give you preliminary view of what you may or may not qualify for, and before you move forward with any decision making. So really the best thing to do is just reach out to us. We do recognize and realize that as long as PennVest has been around, I think it's been 33 years now, we're still always having to reach out and educate people on the agency and what we do, because local officials will periodically and continue to change people on various boards and that. So we do a lot of outreach in the spring and in the fall. And this year we actually had some lunch and learn series, kind of like what we're doing here today, to really provide engagement and opportunities to get those questions answered. So, but at the end of the day, yep, just reach out to us and we'll do what we can to accommodate and get you the answers you're needing.
Mm-hmm. So quick question, Robert, if they don't even know, well, who's my person? Is there a website, or where do they go to find out who's in charge of their area or what sort of projects they're doing?
Yep, very good point. Just go to our webpage, PennVest.gov. On there, it'll show you who provides the assistance for which regions. It'll give a quick breakdown of the programs we have, as well as contact information to reach either the regions or me directly.
Okay, cool. Michael, you had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Robert. Reach out to the agencies. USDA has good programs, and it used to be there was only two games in town, PennVest and USDA, and all of a sudden, with the bond market the way it is, Scott has, wonderful programs too now. But reach out. Also go ask your project engineer, your authority engineer, because they know who to reach out to. And you'll be surprised how many funding things are out there now. I mean, I was shocked when we did a research for that cork board. When I wrote most of that up, I was amazed as to what funding opportunities are out there, and more are now out there with the new Recovery Act. There's even more money available somewhere.
Excellent. Okay, Natalie.
Yeah, I was just going to mimic what Mike said. Reach out to us. We're always here to help. And I've also received emails where you might think it's spam or something coming from different agencies. If you're not sure what it is, forward it to me or forward it to your client manager, and we'll take a look at it and make a phone call and see if it's something that you are eligible for on your behalf. Because if it's eligible for one client, it maybe it's we want to know about it too, so we can give it to other clients as well, and have them have the opportunity to benefit.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, other comments? Yes, Sean.
I would say, similar to what Rob said, reach out to us. We at USDA have a very good website. It's rd.usda.gov. And in the blue bar at the top, there's a whole section there. You can pick programs. Go in there. There's a wealth of information. It helps you to understand what programs you might qualify, in addition to all the programs that are available through the agency. So, but obviously finding a specialist can be difficult too, but we do have a website, and you can navigate down into the website and find the contact point for those specific programs as well.
Okay, excellent. Scott, I'm going to throw it out to you on your side, funding with the money itself and loans and refinancing, that sort of thing. How do people know if they're eligible for a loan or not, or are they all just eligible?
Well, what I was going to say to the last panelists is, in working with the folks at Entech, you guys have done a really good job in evaluating whether it's PennVest or RUS, or whether there's a need to get us involved. I would say start early for sure, but you're correct. We've seen a lot of appetite from the local banks, whether that's because they have a bunch of extra money going around these days. Rates are very, very low. And a lot of times what we've found is there's a way to put things together with PennVest or with RUS, where you're doing some refinancing, restructuring of existing capital markets or bank debt. And then the RUS or PennVest loans come in for the new project. So there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat, if you will. The banks generally are looking at 10 years and shorter kind of stuff, smaller stuff. But again, I think what we've learned with working with the Entech folks is they're very good at kind of moving and shuffling the deck to where they see the need and the fit. And then your professionals can kind of fill in the gray areas, if you will. So it's a good team effort in trying to find the best path or best plan of finance for especially a bigger project.
Okay, excellent. Yes, Natalie.
Yeah, we give Scott all the information and he works his magic and lets us know, these are your options. This is what you can do. So I commend Scott too for what he does. Give him the audits. We give him the project costs and some information on the project, and you give him everything, and then he goes to town on his end. So definitely a good start. To figure out what's best for you, especially when you have those bigger projects, those $1 million and more projects, and you need to really look at some PennVest money, RUS money, or financing. The smaller projects, so that's its whole nother realm of grant funding out there. When you're just doing the $50,000 projects or $100,000, there's so many more grant opportunities out there for those smaller projects than there are for the larger ones.
Okay, and thank you for clarifying the big projects versus the smaller ones. So would you say $1 million, Scott, Natalie, that's sort of the cutoff point, you think?
Million is always my cutoff for like PennVest and RUS, just because of the engineering work that goes along with those loan applications and closings and stuff. So million, I start looking at PennVest, RUS, other things. Anything below $1 million, then I might be looking at Scott, or I'm looking at other DCED funding opportunities, things like that.
Okay, Mary, I saw you shaking your head. Yes.
Yeah, no, I was going to add on to that. Some of the grant applications for like CFA, they actually have project ranges that you could only go up to like 500,000, or it has to be above 500,000 to like $1 million, or so you have to look at the program and what your project cost is to know which grant you could actually apply for.
Okay, so question, Mary, as a owner of a facility, how do they know how much a project's going to cost? Do they normally rely on their engineer to get those numbers?
I was going to say me. Yes, the engineer. We take a look at the project and what's going to, all the infrastructure included, and then we have to talk about the actual engineering costs, permitting fees, services during construction. So yeah, we put together the whole project cost.
So question from our audience. This is from Janet, and she says, how does one apply for matching funds grants when your budget could get cut by the time the funds are awarded? So any advice or any experience where you've managed to get through a situation like that? Yes, Sean.
I've seen a lot of situations where groups will continually look for the grant dollars. I know from my perspective in our program, I've always encouraged groups to start moving forward with the application and continue to pursue these grant opportunities. I've seen, and I'm sure my panelists can agree, they've seen a lot of situations where groups have gone out there searching for grant dollars and struggled to get those commitments. So in an effort to keep a project going, it's good to have I don't want to say it's a fallback because that's not what it is, but it is an opportunity that keeps this project moving because it's obviously a need that the community is looking at. So especially with our program, there's nothing that would prevent me from partnering up with other funds should they come into the project later. We have different periods. So it's a good opportunity for them to continue on with a needed project.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, Sean hit the nail on the head, I think. Just keep applying. But everybody wants a grant. I mean, why not? I want a grant too. But it's not always there for certain municipalities, because a lot of it too, grant money depends on how is your system? Do you have a lot of money in your system? Are you a, let's quote, rich system? Are you basically one that's hanging on and cash flow is tight all the time? That makes a big difference in whether you're going to get grant money or not. I know I get a lot of inquiries since I've worked with Entech about, can we get a grant for this? Can we get a grant for that? And, the idea is, if you really don't know, send us, the engineer, or send me some of your financials, and we can maybe be able to give you a handle. But like Sean said, if you need money, the program, obviously you need to get this project going. So try every outlet you can, but if grant money's not there, I'm afraid you're going to have to bite the bullet sometime and just try a low interest loan.
Oh, and Scott.
Yeah, I would agree with both those guys. I would agree with Sean and say, go down a dual track. Don't get caught, back into a corner if you're applying for grants and then at the end they don't come in and then you're 12 or 18 months behind. But it also shows at least your constituents who are sitting in the room at meetings, when the questions come up and you say, yeah, we've explored grant money, we've explored PennVest, we've explored RUS, we've explored all of our options. That helps, at least from the political side of a big project, to say, guys, we've looked at all the options. There's no free money available to us for whatever reason. When you can check, the more boxes you can check to your constituents that you've uncovered every rock, or turned over every rock, I should say, it gives them a little bit of comfort that you've done your homework.
And I guess that would also help if you need to increase your rates to try to get money for things. Now you've tried everything you can. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Any other comments for that? Yes, Natalie.
Yeah, we found in the past too that sometimes these grant opportunities pop up. So if you're shovel ready, you got your permits, you got your design, and maybe the project doesn't need to get done right away, but you're just waiting for that right funding opportunity. We've seen things pop up, and if you're shovel ready, you could be in the driver's seat as far as funding goes. It happened back with ARA funding. I know PennVest loved that time way back when. And maybe that will come back around again. But I've seen that come to some people's benefits quite a few times, just being shovel ready and having the permits in hand and ready to go. And it can really make you the front runner in a grant application.
Okay. Yeah, and actually, Tori and I were talking about the shovel ready. Like, what does shovel ready mean? And it turns out she's writing a blog right now that we'll have up on our website shortly, explaining what's it mean and how it can help you. So just drill that down, Natalie. So shovel ready means what?
I would say design is complete and permits are in hand.
Okay. You don't have to have awarded it though, or you wouldn't
have put it out to bid yet because you don't want to put yourself on any schedule, but you want to be ready to go out to bid, and that means having your design done and your permits your permits in hand.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add? Anything missing for that shovel ready definition? Okay. Excellent. Oh, yes, Michael.
Natalie, I have a question though. If you have a project that you need to do and you keep waiting for grants, isn't it sometimes beneficial to forget the grant and go for a loan, because as time goes on, the costs keep going up and up and up?
It's a trade-off. It's how urgent are you? How urgent is the project, and how long do you want to wait? Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So question, when it comes to getting grants, most of the time, do you have to be shovel ready, or is that just an oddball requirement? Sean?
This was a question that actually came through our house earlier today, so I figure I better address it. We do not require you to be shovel ready to come to us for application. I mean, traditionally, we look at applications for the water and wastewater side of things in a conceptual package up front, and we don't actually require design to commence until we've, in essence, what I'll say, committed money to the project. We call it obligate. So I just wanted to get that clear because I saw that question pop up, and I know we had been asked that earlier today. So we do not require you to be shovel ready to come in. I know a lot of groups are with Act 537 plans and consent orders and agreements and things like that, but we don't require you to be there quite yet for us.
Okay, excellent. Another question about the shovel ready part. How long does a permit last to be shovel ready? And I guess that would be like the DEP permit. Mary?
Permits vary. There's some permits that don't have an expiration date. There's some general permits. There's part 2 permits to go for a couple of years. NPDS stormwater go for 5 years. So it varies. PennDOT usually is about, I think, a year or 2. But you could require extensions. You could request extensions for all permits based on reasoning, like good reasoning as to why the project wasn't completed. So.
Natalie, did you have something to add to that?
No, that she's right on, and COVID was a good reason for a while there too. So
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, like, what is a good reason? So natural disasters, maybe, just stuff that's out of the ordinary.
funding is a reason, Christine. We could not get funding, so that's a reason as well.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and Rob Horvat, he's out of our Pittsburgh office. He adds that the Pennsylvania DEP public water supply permits, they expire in 2 years. So thank you, Rob. I love when we get help from our audience as well. So audience, throw in your comments, questions, and answers if you have them as well. It's a group activity, and you can see we're all trying to help each other find money and get our infrastructure taken care of. Tori also mentions, back to Sharon's question, that she should pursue both options when it comes to funding. So another question from our audience, if we have both a larger project over $1 million and also a smaller project that's a couple $100,000, should you only focus on a grant for the larger project? Does it hurt to pursue grants for both? Should they be one grant? Like what's the best way to get funding for something like that? Anyone have any ideas? Yes, Natalie.
I'll just say we've done in the past where if you're going to go to PennVest to do a larger project and it's all water related, you can throw that little smaller project in with it to make it just a little bit bigger project. So we've done that with our US as well, and with private financing. That's the beauty of the private financing. When we do stuff with Scott, we just go all over the board. We could do water, sewer, municipal, anything. So the guidelines aren't as stringent, but it doesn't hurt to pursue both because, as Mary described earlier, different funding programs have different caps, and different ones apply for different size projects. So we can certainly roll both together and do it in one project with any of these agencies on here, or one might just have a really good fit for some certain grant opportunity. Say it's something with green energy or something specific. There's grant programs out there just for that. Like CFA, if you go to DCED's website, Department of Community and Economic Development, and they have a program finder on their website as well, you'll see different funding programs for very particular items. So you may fall into one of those opportunities.
Okay, Michael, you had a comment?
No, I was just going to echo what Natalie says. Pursue both.
Okay.
Doesn't
Robert,
hurt.
Robert, did you have a comment?
Yeah, what I was going to say is each situation is going to be different based on the funding source. Here at PennVest, the best thing I would recommend is discussing it with us, and we'll be able to do an analysis to let you know if, one, it makes a difference combining or keeping them separate or not, and what other funding sources may be out there that we partner with or have the ability to partner with. And so that consultation up front is important to get the answers on the best way to proceed. So it's not like you'd go one way when these circumstances exist and go another when those circumstances exist. It's best to discuss it initially so that you have the information on what is going to be the most promising funding opportunity for your projects.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, I think we also want to be mindful of the useful life of the assets being financed. And so if it's a smaller project for equipment, there's going to be some IRS rules that dictate how long you can finance that piece of equipment for. So the bank market might be suitable for a piece of equipment that's very short-lived. And the larger piece, I'm assuming, would be a much longer-lived asset that can be financed 20, 25, 30, or even 40 years with with RUS. So it's not unusual to have the equipment piece come through on a 5, 7, 10-year bank loan. RUS does the larger project on a long-term basis, or the bond market does it on a longer basis. So I would say make sure you're checking all your options, and it's not unusual for all those pieces to come together under one roof.
Excellent. Okay, something I wanted to bring up, I'd mentioned Tori Morgan and I were talking this morning, and we recently, a client of ours was interested in getting a grant, and there was one available, but when we were looking at it, we're like, they don't really apply. So didn't apply for it, and something happened where there weren't many applications, and they extended the timing for the grant, and apparently Tori's close to some people with PennVest, and the guy called her and was like, hey, are you guys going to have any project to apply for this grant? And she's like, well, we were thinking of this one. And he's like, I think we can work it out. I think it's applicable. So, so we submitted the paperwork. Looks like our clients got a great chance of getting a multi-million-dollar grants that they just didn't expect at all, which is phenomenal. So really, Robert speaks to these relationships that we need to have with these different organizations. So not only do you know who to reach out to when you've got questions or have projects you want to get funded, but also the reverse. When these agencies have money, have quick grants available or certain deadlines, for them to reach out to the different engineers or owners can be a lifeline to get funding for these things. So I don't know, have any of you anyone else on the panel experienced anything like that where it really comes down to the relationship? Okay, well, just something to keep in mind. Maybe Tori's the one who knows how to do it. So talk to Tori. She'll help you out. Let's go back to the polling we had done in the beginning. So once again, a reminder to our audience, this is all about you, your questions, your concerns. And if you want a DEP credit, make sure you submit a question. So the second biggest thing that they were concerned about, our audience, was understanding which grants and loans are best for different projects. I almost feel like we may have covered that at the start when Robert was saying, well, reach out to the people at these different organizations. Now we've got people who know RUS, we've got PennVest here, and are there any other organizations that we don't have on the panel that we routinely reach out to who have loans and grants available, or ones that are easy to get? Natalie?
Probably the ones I mentioned through DCED, the Commonwealth Financing Authority. They have been very active in their H2O program for water and sewer, as well as their small water sewer program. So those programs have been very beneficial to our clients, and the applications aren't too rigorous. We've had clients that done them themselves. And there's ones where we just help them out a little bit, and then if they don't have the time or the resources, we can do the application for them as well. So but CFA, and like I said, that's on the DCED website. There's a multitude of funding opportunities. We've done water, sewer, and then we actually have even multimodal projects going right now to help with streetscape projects. Curbs, sidewalks, lighting, traffic signals, that sort of thing. So funding out there for all kinds of stuff.
Excellent. Yes, Michael.
Well, I think check that cork board. There's Tori and I developed. It's like kind of salesperson for you, but check it. Tori and I developed the funding worksheet. Like Natalie said, DCED. You'll be surprised what's out there. I was surprised Pennsylvania Rural Water offers loans. I'm not sure exactly the interest rates on them, but you'd have to contact them. But they offer loans for programs. EPA offers for big dollar projects, 5 million or more through WIFIA. So there's a lot out there that you can look at. Natalie talked about streetscapes. Rural development will do things like that, not through Sean's program, but through what they call their community facilities program. So if you're not an authority, or let's say a borough council that needs to, maybe let's build a new borough building, or we need a firehouse. Community facilities program through rural development has the programs for money for that. So there's money out there, but if you look at that cork board and look at the funding piece of it, you'll see how much, you'll be surprised how much money's out there.
Yeah, something that I was on it this morning, and I'm like, oh, what's going on? So some stuff that Tori had pointed out to me was DCDE, that's for Act 537. Is that right? 537? Like, there's not, once again, I don't know anything about this, but apparently if you want to apply for that, it's at the end of April. So the cool thing, Corkboard has a link, information, and in big red letters has the due date for that. SRBC's got grants for water level monitoring, WIFIA loan, that would be due in July 23rd. So really, really cool things on the Corkboard. Mary, were you going to add something?
No, I was also going to say the CFA, but they also, the local share account, which is all the gambling money. I've had a few clients get some grants from that program as well.
Grants for what sort of thing?
Sewer projects.
Yeah.
Sewer extensions, sewer replacement.
Okay.
That's all I do is sewer, so it's all sewer.
Okay.
There is a deadline for that. I think it's July 1st, is it, Mary? I forget.
It's based
Tell us.
on your county. I think it's like every 3 or 4 months, and it's based by your county. Like I think like Luzerne's like September, but if you're in like Monroe, Wayne, then I think you're July.
July. I think Monroe, Wayne's July. Yeah.
Yeah, so it goes by a little bit of a region, and it has a different deadline for each region.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, I was just going to say, keep checking back, because even as of this morning, we got a legislative update from our folks in Washington that all that we're hearing about for this large infrastructure plan that's being proposed. There's a number of programs, whether they come to fruition or not in the next 6 or 8 months, who knows, but there's some significant dollars as part of those infrastructure bills that probably will find their way down to the state and local level in some way, shape, or form. So it's changing all the time. So keep checking back.
Okay. Yeah, and that ties in with another question from our audience. What are your thoughts on the federal funding for American Rescue Act? And we've got a new political people in charge. Biden's people, different ideas, different ways of funding things. Does it look like there'll be lots of money released? What are you guys seeing out there? What are the hopes? Yes,
Well, right
Michael?
now, the things we're seeing is we're hearing what everyone else is hearing, kind of out there in the general public. It's not like there's any inside information at this point in time.
Robert, that's why you're on the panel. Tell us the dirt. What's really going on?
Yeah, the dirt. We're expecting at some point in time to see money trickle down through PennVest, and not just our agency, other agencies as well, to do infrastructure, broadband, sewer, water, on-point sewers. I mean, just a variety of things. How, when, and where, we don't know yet. But that's, as Scott pointed out, it's important to keep checking back in, because the programs that you might have been familiar with 2-3 years ago could be completely different. Eligibilities could be different. Timing could be different with all the infrastructure talk that's coming down from Washington. In the next 6 to 8 months, there's going to be a lot of changes or modifications or availability that change. So yeah, just keep asking questions and have your ear to the floor a little bit with the agencies, and make sure that you're checking in frequently or timely to get updates. And I suspect you'll see a lot of the agencies putting out press releases or information through Facebook and other social media platforms when that information does become available. But yeah, it's the future's looking bright, at least in that arena of infrastructure, and anticipating a busy time.
Good news, Michael.
From what I read in that too, it seems like money will be passed down through the states. So different state agencies will be administering it. So it's not going to be just, let's say, just a PennVest. It's going to be a number of different state agencies are going to have their hands in it. So like Robert said, keep checking back on it. Your best bet, I think, would be to check with your state representative's office all the time, just to see if that money's released, who has it, when it's going to be released, and just keep bothering them. But there is one cool program on that. It's for low-income households to get money to pay for your delinquency on your sewer and water bills. So, and I think, I don't know how it's going to work. It'll work different in every state, but I have a feeling in Pennsylvania, it's going to work like the LIHEAP program, where you apply for it, you get this grant. I know in LIHEAP maybe up to $600, and that goes directly to the utility company like UGI or Aqua America or Aqua Pennsylvania or whatever. And then that'll be credited towards their account. So that's one thing I think our clients need to really take a look at, that program, because it'll help at least maybe clear up or get some money back into the coffers.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments on that? Okay, so it sounds like the future's bright if you want to do stuff. Excellent. Here's another question from our audience, from Carol Paul. Hey, Carol, how are you? She's a client of ours out in Greenville. Love Carol. Oh, she was also on our Wonder Women panel. So she asked, does RUS have standard application and cutoff dates like PennVest does, or do they take applications at any time? Michael, I see you shaking your head.
Well, let Sean answer it. I'm the retired RUS person. He's the current one.
Yeah, we don't have any application cutoff dates. Applications can be submitted at any time. We're congressionally allocated funds every year. So it's as you submit an application, assuming that we still have funding left, we consider those applications. We use a system called RD Apply now for our applications. It's all online to try to help alleviate some of the paperwork. So that's a process in itself to get it started. But once you're in there, it's pretty easy to move through it.
Okay. Oddball question for you guys. Something I've always wondered when it comes to getting grants, loans, that sort of thing. Can you reuse the same paperwork from grant to grant to grant or year to year?
Yes.
Natalie, you're shaking your head, yes?
Yes. If you get denied one year and we can just change the date and resubmit it the next year, by all means do it, because you have another chance to get funding. So yes, we've done it, and we will continue to do it, because that is a benefit to our clients and to us, because if you get the funding, then we have a project to do as well. So it's a win-win.
Okay, and Mary, I see you shaking your head too.
I agree. I've done that numerous times.
That's phenomenal. I mean, because why not? So you're not reinventing the wheel, and you've already done what, 99% of it? Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, cool. A question from our audience: do I dare ask about stormwater funding in the future? If this is the wrong forum, I apologize. Nope, we're talking about funding for all sorts of stuff. So anyone with any good information about stormwater funding? Sean?
Yeah, I mean, we can do stormwater within our program. I don't have the imagination a lot of these engineers on the panel do, but I'm more of a pipe and culvert guy. That makes sense to me, but there's a lot of things that engineers are looking at to address stormwater. I take those stream things on a case-by-case basis, but we can look at the pipes, culvert, those types of things through our program as well. That is certainly an option.
Okay, excellent. Yes, Michael.
Most of the money that could be used for sewer and water, a lot of those programs could also be used for stormwater. I think with RUS though, you won't get a grant for stormwater with RUS. It'll be strictly loan. But again, check that cork board, because there's a section on the spreadsheet for stormwater funding, but most of it a lot of your programs will overlap.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments on that?
I was just going to add that, certainly stormwater is an eligible activity, whether it be your traditional stormwater where you're dealing with volume, or whether it be your MS4 type stormwater project, municipal separate sanitary. No, I can never get the 4 S's. What is it? Municipal separate storm system, MS4. You're dealing more with quality, where you're having to reduce sediment or nutrient loads within a municipality and MS4 community. Either one is eligible at PennVest. We anticipate, right now our budget's $700 million a year. We anticipate having that available for the foreseeable future moving forward. Right now we're funding every project that's technically and administratively complete. That comes to our doorstep. We have since 2015. And if we see a need, whether it just be with stormwater or with drinking water or clean water, our program is very lightly leveraged. If we need to come up with additional capacity to meet the funding need, we can certainly leverage our program, increase our budget, and make sure that those funds are available if that demand does come to fruition. We can adjust and change to meet that need.
Okay, excellent. Any other comments? Okay, now the audience, our panel doesn't know this is going to happen right now, but we're going to play a little game that I'd like to call Money Mania. Well, people who've been on the panel before know I like to throw a little fun stuff in here. So I'm going to pose a question to our panel, and let's see who the smart people are out there. And do me a favor, don't pull out your smartphone, don't use Google or Alexa or any of those other things. Let's just have some fun the old-fashioned way. So Money Mania, we pose a question to our panel, which is, when was PennVest founded? So I'm hoping Robert, that this will be easy for you, but I'm going to go around, and Natalie, do you have any, give me a date. When was PennVest founded?
I think 1988.
1988. Mary, what's your answer?
I was going to say the same thing.
1988. Okay. And you know what? I also want to hear from the audience out there. So I'm going to release a poll to our audience for Money Mania. And so actually, this gives this will end up giving our panelists a little more idea. So audience, I'm going to need you to respond. When do you think PennVest was founded? Way back in 85 or 87 or 87 or 88? So I'll give you another 5 seconds to answer that. In the meantime, Michael, what's your answer? When was PennVest founded?
I think PennVest became my competition in 1987.
1987. Okay. And Scott, what's your answer?
I'm going 88.
88. Okay. And Sean, what's your answer?
Yeah, I'd take 87 February.
87. Okay, good. And you're being specific. And Robert, what's your answer?
Oh, geez. It's one of those ones that are shown. Yeah. And the reason for my confusion is there's the date of when the act was adopted that created the agency, but then it was the following year in which the agency actually was stood up.
See, and I was hoping to get some more inside information on the history of this and what really happened. So I think it was, I was going to say 88, and then it was stood up in 89, but I could be off a year. Okay, but is your answer February 2nd or March 1st, 88?
Oh, geez. I'm going to go March 1st.
Ding, 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 ding. And I hate to put you on the spot, but yes, you are correct. So I'm going to end the polling and we'll share the results. And boom, our audience also did a good job with that. Most people picked March 1st, 1988. So yes, that's correct. That's when PennVest was founded. So thank you for playing along with my audience. And one thing I want to, just a reminder when it comes to PennVest, that founded in March 1988, and it serves the communities and citizens of Pennsylvania by funding sewer, stormwater, and drinking water projects. So looks like Robert won that round, and anyone else who guessed 1988. So nice work, Natalie, Mary, Scott.
Well, I have to be honest. I really had no idea until Robert earlier said something about PennVest being around for 33 years. So I just did the math.
Did the math real quick.
Here's the thing. When he said that, I'm like, "Whoa, this is like beautiful." It's like we're giving you, there's a word, but foreshadowing. We did foreshadowing there. So if we're paying attention earlier, you would have won that round.
It was like a Columbo episode. That's exactly what that was, when you had to like try to find the clues in the episode before he solved them.
Okay, we've got some more questions in from our audience. So Chuck Sakonis, who's with Entech, he says funding for industrial pretreatment systems and zero liquid discharge ZLD systems. Does anyone have any information on funding for that? Mary, I see you're shaking your head no, so I won't call on you. Natalie, you're shaking your head no. Anyone else have any information on this? And
Not something that would be eligible at PennVest. Essentially, it has to be a clean water project. So what clean water project are you addressing? If it's just an internal process, doing a pretreatment of sorts, then typically isn't eligible.
okay, excellent. Any other comments on that?
Oh, well, I will add though, if we have funded the elimination of discharges to do a pretreatment that then went to a municipal system. So it was eliminating a discharge that was causing a problem.
Got it. Natalie?
It sounds like it's right up Scott's alley.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of the catch-all. It doesn't, unlike RUS or PennVest, there's no boxes to check for what we will finance as long as it's eligible for tax exempt financing for the most part. So we'll do a lot of crazier stuff. Thank you.
Michael?
Since it involves industry, is there a Pennsylvania, what the heck is it called? Development Authority, or I think there's something where the state of Pennsylvania has money for industrial type things. So, but we'd have to check that out.
Okay. Yeah, and
If
actually,
you find it, Mike, you put it on the cork.
Yes, it will.
yeah, because actually Tori's chiming in with the same question. Is there industrial funding for, actually, well, no, is there industrial funding for wastewater or stormwater projects? Okay, excellent. Okay. Any
Yes.
other comments? Okay, yes, Robert?
Yeah, if it's cleaning up water, whether it's a private entity or a municipal entity, both are eligible.
Okay, got it. Any other comments on that? Okay, another question from our audience. For PennVest, can you provide any insight into how to leverage your application package to obtain more grant funding?
That's a great question. And often folks are, when they reach out to us, they want to know, how can I apply for a grant? Well, you don't apply for a grant. You apply for funding, is the distinction. And the way we allocate grants, whether whole or in part as part of a project, is based on affordability and the systems or the entity's ability to repay debt. So that way, and I'm just being arbitrary, let's say Fox Chapel outside of Pittsburgh, which is a very wealthy community, doesn't necessarily need a grant, where someone, let's say, to do a project because of the median household income, they can afford and handle that debt to do the project, where you might find someone up in Gailton, up in Tioga or Potter counties, that is more financially distressed and don't have the ability to repay a debt or do it in an affordable means. So at that point in time, we look at, to keep the user fee down, we shoot for a target affordable rate. And to do that, we'll either add some grant funding, extend the term, or a combination to try and get folks to a target rate, affordable target rate. So the best thing to do is just provide all your information, clear and accurate information, and up-to-date financial statements to assure that you're getting the best funding package we can give you.
Okay. Any other comments with that? Question I have is, when it comes to the paperwork for grants and funding, what's the biggest mistake that you guys see? Sean, Robert, or Michael in the past, what's the biggest mistakes that you guys see that keep people from getting the grants and funding?
Well, I'll just go back on what Robert was saying. I mean, you're applying for funding for us. I don't know that you come in and say, hey, we want all these grants. You're not doing yourself a service in a lot of instances by doing that. Whenever I promote our program, I'm always talking to communities and I say, let's discuss the loan program. And that's how I look at any application that comes to the door. I look at it from the loan perspective first. And depending on numerous factors, maybe there is grant opportunity, but I typically won't know that until I'm through it. And one of the things that hit me as you were discussing it with Rob is I don't know that there's anything specific you can do. It's more, just laying out all the details in front of us, letting us look at what we have in front of us and making the determination on our end based on the facts that we see. So I don't know that answered, but I mean, I don't really think there's anything specific that could be done.
Okay. Robert, do you see any big mistakes that people make?
I don't see big mistakes. One I'm probably guilty of myself is I tend not to read instructions. I'm one of those, I'll try and answer the questions first. And if something doesn't make sense, well, then I might go back and read the question. Just simple stuff like that. Really, the big thing is current financial statements. Sometimes we have entities that have don't have their last 2 years worth of annual reports completed yet, and it makes it difficult to make a funding determination if folks don't have current and up-to-date information. So I would say that's probably one of the bigger hurdles that we face sometimes is when folks don't have up-to-date financial statements.
Yes, Michael?
And echo what these two guys said. In the past, when I was doing them, it was make sure you get all the information, provide everything that's needed, especially like Robert said, the financial information, balance sheets. Many of these small authorities, they don't have a balance sheet. They don't have an accountant. It's just try to get as much of your information together as possible, provide everything you have. What are your user rates? How many users do you have? Just everything you have to make it easier on the specialists who are doing the loan processing.
Okay, so what Sean and Rob said is right, and those the people they have at both agencies are really great at helping with any applications. So there never is any really big mistakes because they walk you right through it. So that's positive. On the financial statements, really important. If you do get a grant, or especially with CFA, I've seen it more and more, make sure you keep up to date financial statements and have them done within, try to get them done 6 to 9 months after your fiscal year ends, because they won't release any funds to you if you don't have up to date financial statements. Okay. DCED looks at it and then they send me an email and say, we can't release funds because we don't have updated financials. So I know auditors are terribly busy and they're hard to work with sometimes, but if you do have something going and one of these projects, make sure to stay on them to keep your audits up to date.
Okay. Other comments? Thank you, Natalie.
Welcome.
Okay. Another going back to our original poll for the to our audience. Their concerns, the number 3 thing on the list was that their board doesn't want to raise the rates. So I realize this may not be, well, we got some engineers here and you guys deal with, trying to find money. So any suggestions on things people can do to help explain to their board why they need to raise rates, or how do you do that? How do you make it more palatable for the people out there in the community? Yes, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, a good example of we worked with you guys at West Cocalico, and I've said it before, starting early, have your engineer complete a rate study so you know what you're up against. How your rate compared to others around you is a good starting point. But there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. Clearly, if you know you have a big rate increase coming, planning for a project, getting ahead of that, starting little increases to rates over a 3-4 year period, rather than hitting your ratepayers with 30, 40, 50% all at one time is a lot more painful, obviously. And for us, I can't tell you the number of, Schuylkill County is a great example of, we'll look at your existing debt. With these low interest rates, you can restructure your existing debt to make room for the new debt. So in a lot of cases, Minersville comes to mind, others in Schuylkill County, where you take the existing debt, stretch it out just a little bit at these low rates, it really doesn't cost you a lot. And then when you kind of dovetail the two, the new money and the refinancing together, it's a way of keeping rates down without jeopardizing the future and really kicking the can down the road. Clearly, we want to avoid that as much as we can, but we also want to be mindful that big projects require us to do some things that we otherwise wouldn't do to keep the rates as low as we possibly can. So start early and work with your engineer and your financial professionals to try and come up with a widget that minimizes the impact of your rate base.
Okay, Natalie?
Yeah, I keep a spreadsheet of all the local water and sewer rates on our server. So if you didn't know that, Christine, now you know. So, and I've taken that to multiple client meetings and showed them where they fall. So like in Schuylkill County, I've taken it to meetings and said, this is where you are. This is where everyone is. This is the average. You're way low, I'm sorry to say. So I think it's time that if you need to do these upgrades, your system's going to be, the life of your system's going to be extended, and your rates are just going to have they're going to have to go up. And the smaller increases seem to be more palatable than the one large increase. So if you know something's coming up within a couple years, start tacking on a few dollars a year if you can, and you just have to be the bad guy sometimes and do it. And I know it sucks, but it just is it's just nature of the beast, I guess. So
Carol Paul also mentions that PMAA, if you're a member of Pennsylvania Municipal Authorities Association, they also have a rate study available for authorities. So I mean, nothing better than cold hard facts to see where you are compared to everyone else, to justify raising them to take care of your infrastructure the way everyone else is and has to. Natalie?
Yeah, it definitely opens up people's eyes to, oh my God, those people are paying what? So it really does. And then it gives everybody in the audience at that borough or township meeting or wherever, authority meeting, oh, maybe we are a little low with our rates. So,
yeah. Michael?
Yeah, I echo what Natalie says. I used to encourage all my clients, raise your rates, even if it's $2 a month or $1 a month every year, just to start building for the future. I mean, I've seen, and I've also seen many projects that went by the wayside because they didn't want to raise rates. I could think of one in Lackawanna County back in the 90s. They were working on a sewer project. At that time would have been $5 million, and they didn't want to even have a sewer project. They didn't even want to put sewers in the township because it was going to cost a lot of money. Well, guess what? DEP came along many years later and says, you will do this sewer system. Well, the $5 million sewer system went to $15 to $18 million that we ended up funding for it. And the rates when I were $70 to $80 a month, compared to they could have been $25 to $30 a month back 20 years earlier. So, if you have a project you need to do, my advice is, let's start doing it, and let's, raise the rates like Scott and Natalie said. Start raising them a little bit at a time, start getting some capital ready, and bite the bullet and do it. Because if you, like we said earlier today, if you waste your time looking at a project and scuttling it, eventually it's going to come back to bite you at 2 times the cost.
Excellent. Any other comments or suggestions? Okay, another question from our audience. This is from Keith Kawaji, and he asks, why are boroughs and townships able to apply for and receive grants, but authorities are not eligible? So, anyone with some insight into that? Natalie?
Well, I think it depends. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Natalie. I'm sorry.
No, just going to say, sometimes even if it's an authority, you can apply under your borough or township. So you can have, you put the authorities paying to get the application put in, and then the borough or township would sign off on it for the authority project. So if you can work with your municipality, that's all the better, and is definitely an option with some of the funding sources out there. And authorities are welcome to apply to PennVest and RUS as well. So they do have those opportunities as well. So, but if it doesn't say specifically an authority, look at going under your borough or township as the applicant.
Okay, Michael?
I was just going to say what Natalie said. PennVest and RUS take authorities, take boroughs and townships, whatever.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, and I would say the legal structure of the documents, at least in our world, has changed dramatically. If you haven't issued debt in a while, financial documentation for accessing the capital markets. If you had an old, pre-86, guaranteed sewer revenue issue, leaseback structure, West Cocalico is a good example where the township actually is issuing the debt because it's a more efficient process than having their authority issue the debt. So that world has changed as well from a legal structure perspective. It's no longer you have to issue the debt through the authority in some cases if it's an old leaseback authority. So be open-minded as to what the best plan may be to structure the debt from a legal perspective as well. And your bond lawyers, your solicitor, your engineer, your financial, all of us kind of have been working in that world. So there's no dumb questions. Ask the questions as to what might work for you.
Okay. Mary, did you have a comment?
I think they covered it.
A question I want to pose to Scott, and just a reminder to our audience, we've got about 10 minutes left or so. We'll continue taking your questions, and so feel free to use the Q&A button. But Scott, I know over the past, year or so, interest rates have been record lows, and it's been fabulous. Where are they now, and where are they going to go?
Wow. I don't have the crystal ball that's going to tell me where they're going to go. I can only tell you where they've been. Since we met last in November, we have seen interest rates move higher slightly. And I say that because, getting to the end of the pandemic, all the stimulus that, reopening the economy, that all has led to a move higher in interest rates. By way of a quick benchmark, the 10-year Treasury is kind of an indicator of the general theme of interest rates. At the bottom last March, that hit 0.5%. We got up as high as 1.75% on the 10-year Treasury. Municipal rates in our world have outperformed. So you can still fix a rate tax exempt for 30 years in the mid twos. Rates are real attractive. But if you have a bank project or a project that's kind of shorter term in nature, we're seeing some really aggressive bank loan rates, in some cases less than 1%. So, 0.85, 0.95 for 5 or 7 years, 1.5% kind of for 10 years in the bank market. So really attractive terms there. I guess I would say, there's a lot of different ways, as I said earlier, to skin that cat, whether it's a long 40-year amortization with the RUS program, a 20-year, 1% loan through PennVest. Capital markets, can give you kind of anywhere in between. So I guess the way I would summarize that without the crystal ball would be the expectation is that rates are over the next 12, 24 months, rates are probably going to be higher than what they are today. We have a great interest rate chart that goes back 50 years that says interest rates are higher than what they are today 97% of the time. So your downside is 3%, your risk is 97%. So to the shovel ready question, we have a project in the next couple of years, start thinking about putting rates in place to pay for it. If you are fairly far along in the design process and to use a big number, if you have a $10 million project, but you just haven't finalized the engineering, maybe you go out and borrow some numbers to protect the interest rate side of it. Maybe you borrow $4 or $5 million of it and lock it up at these low rates. And once you have a construction bid in hand, you finish the project. So you've taken some of the risk off the table from an interest rate perspective. You have 3 years to spend the money, I guess. So from a legal, this may be a longer winded answer. So you have 3 years to spend the money. So if you can reasonably expect to spend the money in 3 years and you have a pretty good estimate on the project, you ought to be borrowing some of it at these great rates.
Okay,
I'll stop talking.
No, I love having you on our panel to, sort of gaze. And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but if you did, well, you give us the history, which is invaluable in just understanding where were we, where are we now, and what sort of can we expect. Okay. Any other comments when it comes to rates and the stuff that Scott mentioned? Okay.
Say
Yeah,
something.
Sean.
I like what Scott said earlier too. I think too often sometimes communities get narrowed and they forget to look at their debt service component. And, over time, it just becomes a routine thing, paying that debt service payment. But it's really important to consider that in your operational expenses and say, is there an opportunity to reduce that? And I mean, that's something that I often encourage groups, just my caseload, the servicing portfolio I have, to go out there and just talk to your local banks, see what they have in terms of tax exempt borrowings, stuff that Scott's talking about here. I mean, it may make a lot of sense. We wrote loans back in 80s and 90s at much higher rates than what we're seeing today. It doesn't make a lot of sense to maintain a 40-year loan at that point. It's refinance it and or restructure it some other way, especially with
Yeah.
other borrowings.
We've seen a ton of that. I mean, a good example is, the PennVest program, where if you did a 20-year PennVest loan at 1.5 or 1 or 2%, and there's 5 years left to run on it, you can go to a bank and get a rate of 0.75%, better than the 1 or 1.5 or 2%. But you might also be able to take that payment and stretch it out a little bit to make room for that new project that's coming online. So don't just look at your debt portfolio and say, well, geez, I got a 2.5% RUS loan or a 1% PennVest loan. My hands are tied. There's nothing I can do with that. Again, no dumb question. You should really look at it and see if there is something maybe you can do with it at these historical rates.
Yeah, good points. Excellent. Okay, a couple more minutes left, and something we're constantly aware of is in the water industry, there's always new rules and regulations, things that have to be done to improve water quality, and stuff you got to pay for. So Natalie and Mary, I'm going to throw this out to you two. Are there any new water regs that are coming out in the next 6 months, year, that sort of time frame, where owners should be aware of it and perhaps look at projects and ways to get funding for them now? Or are you working on anything for any of our clients right now? Natalie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, Mary's going to say, I don't do water. I only do wastewater. The lead and copper rules are emerging. PennVest is doing some funding now with some lead line replacement and lead related things. So we have taken advantage of that for some of our clients. Besides the lead and copper, I'm not sure. Here Tori's saying AWEA and PFAS. So there's stuff out there for that, I guess, too. I do a little bit of water. I do a little bit of wastewater, and then my focus lately has been industrial wastewater and just industrial engineering, environmental stuff. So kind of all over the place, which is great. Makes my job fun. But lead and copper is the first one that come to mind, and there is a number of funding opportunities out there for anything lead and copper related, whether you have lead service lines, lead meters, or God forbid, lead main lines yet. Hopefully not.
Robert, so anything you can share as far as what you're seeing as far as change the rules and regs on the water side and what people are looking for funding for?
Natalie hit the two on the head that is fresh in my mind is getting lead out of the system. And we have a special funding program for that to help folks with using some grant funds to get lead out of the system. Basically avoid the Flint, Michigan situation. And being an older state and the hilliness of our topography in some older cities, there's still a plethora of lead within various systems. And so we want to make sure we're helping to get that out. And then we just came out with another new program that if we have grant funds available at the end of the year, people can apply for that strictly for use of PFAS treatment. And for any system that has a positive mark of PFAS. So recognize those as two emerging issues and making sure that we're targeting funding to assist in those efforts.
Excellent. Okay, so Mary, if you're just doing wastewater, are there any changes to regulations in wastewater where people are trying to get funding to improve their infrastructure?
Not always changes, but as authorities, townships, boroughs go and renew their permits, their NIPD's permits, then sometimes they get more stringent effluent limitations or new effluent limitations that they never previously had. And so there might be some projects that have to be completed at the treatment plant or even in the collection system to handle that. But nothing new as far as regulations, but it may be new that's like site specific for the client themselves.
Okay. Okay. One more comment from Tori out in the audience. SRBC has funding opportunities. So thank you, Tori. And I see we're almost up on 2:15. So I want to make sure I share contact information with our audience out there. So just share my screen one more time. If you enjoyed today's roundtables, I'm trying to schedule them every 3 weeks or so, and we're going to continue them at least through the summertime. And I know we're getting back live and in person at some of these conferences, but these are a lot of fun to do, really easy to view, and pull people together from all over the state as well as the country sometimes. So our next one scheduled is Wednesday, June 2nd, and that's wastewater treatment. What operators wish their engineer knew. A phenomenal panel of operators and engineers. And then coming soon, we've got a water regulatory update, how an environmental regulatory audit will improve your whole life, possibly a slight exaggeration. And then the well-attended beer with an engineer or operator. We did this back in December. So important things I didn't learn in school. And you can always check, sign up, or even see recasts, that's tapes of our last roundtables. They're all up on our website, entecheng.com. Go to the top menu to resources and drop down for the roundtables. So as a wrap up, huge thank you to my panel. Contact information is here. They love talking about these things. So big thank you to Natalie, to Mary, to Mike Angerson. A huge thank you to Robert Booz. Phenomenal information about PennVest. Loved having you here, Sean McElroy, with information on RUS. Scott Kramer, thank you for gazing into your crystal ball. And if you want a PDH certificate or an operator CEH, my email address is here, and I welcome getting some information back from you. If you want the operator credit, please make sure you give me your operator number. And I'll leave this up for a moment or two. So to wrap things up, I'm going to go back to my panel. Panelists, any other words of wisdom, anything we didn't discuss, anything that you think the audience should know before we sign off? Anybody?
I think we covered it, Christine. Covered it.
We
Call
can
us-
talk about the
call us
Phillies
if-
lineup if you like.
Wait, what was that, Scott?
We can talk about the Phillies lineup if you like.
Well, actually, I haven't been following. Should we or shouldn't we?
We should.
I'll add something quick.
Yes,
I'll add
Mary.
something. One of the other things, one of the other small programs I was involved with is for the residents, because when I'm out there doing the sewer projects and sometimes projects impact the actual users, that there is some grants and loans for residents to help improve their sewer at their houses as well. So that is something that we've pushed to customers of some of the sewer systems if they have to upgrade their laterals, or most recently we installed a brand new system and people had to get grinder pumps and install laterals from their house to the grinder pump and do upgrade powers and everything else. And there's programs from, I believe, PennVest and RUS that also help the residents, not just for the authorities, but for the actual customers as well.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of people don't realize that. So that's phenomenal. Excellent. Okay, any other comments or, yes, Michael?
I'd just say, to sum it up, contact your project engineer, contact Entech, and we'll put you on to wherever we think you can probably get the best financing. Give us your, I'd be glad to look at your financials, give them to your project engineer, and I'll be glad to take a look at them and determine whether maybe we can get a loan or a grant or something. But work with your engineer. We have the tools available to do what needs to be done.
Excellent. Okay, and Tori from our audience also mentions reach out to your state representatives to discuss funding opportunities as well. Okay, any other comments or help for our audience? Okay, excellent. Well, as I told you, I know nothing about this stuff, but I was engaged for 75 minutes. This was phenomenal. Learned a lot. So huge thank you to my panelists. Big thank you to our audience. I loved all your questions and comments. That keeps us going. And really good information. And I always say that magical things happen when you bring together passionate people. I know everyone here is very passionate about this. So thank you all. It was great seeing you, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.